Ah, the Yellow Wallpaper, a short story written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, a 9th grade English class classic. Let's ruin it, shall we? So we've got the narrator who is unnamed, but her name is speculated to be Jane, so that's what I'm gonna call her in this video. Jane and her husband John are staying in a big grand house for the summer. However, Jane takes one look at this mansion and deems it haunted. I mean, honestly, I don't blame her. This seems like the perfect setup for a haunted house story. Jane tells us that she suffers from a nervous depression, and John is a doctor who doesn't believe in her mental illness. Hey man, not cool. So Jane writes in her journal as some sort of a coping mechanism.
Using creative arts as a method to push away your crushing feelings of depression and hopelessness. I totally don't know what she's talking about.
John requires that Jane sit in her room all day doing absolutely nothing. Apparently, this is supposed to help her not go insane. Flawless recommendation, doctor. So Jane starts describing the room that she's in her journal to help calm herself. The room's alright for the most part, but she can't stop herself from nearly vomiting at the hideous yellow wallpaper in the room. I mean, ugh, did a monkey design that? No, take that back. A monkey could design better wallpaper than that shit. It's so tacky and tasteless, but at least it keeps Jane occupied. Weeks go on, and Jane continues to hide her journal writing hobby from John. Jane and John. They couldn't have picked more generic names to go with. She's still pissed off at John for being so insensitive to her needs, but what gets under her skin even more than her controlling husband is that damn wallpaper. It's so ugly that now she starts feeling like it's out to get her. There's a certain place in the wallpaper where, if the sun hits it at just the right spot, she can sort of make out a figure behind the eyesore of a design on the front. Oh, here comes John, that's enough of that! Soon the 4th of July passes. John allowed Jane a little bit of social interaction, but he soon shooed her on back to her little room. But Jane doesn't really mind it as much anymore. In fact, she's become a little fond of that wretched wallpaper. It's kinda like a pug. They're so ugly that the more you look at them, the cuter they become. And Jane starts to see her own pug, if you will, in this wallpaper. The figure that I mentioned earlier starts to look like a woman stooped over and creeping around, trapped by the designs on top of the wallpaper. Oh god, that's not cute, that's not cute! Jane tries to ask John if they can leave the house, but he doesn't really seem to care that much about her concerns and shoos her away. Husband of the fucking year. John starts to mistake Jane's fixation on the wallpaper as relaxation, and he starts to think that she's getting better. Boy, you couldn't be farther from the truth. Jane's obsession with the wallpaper increases, and she tries her best to keep other people from looking at it before she can figure it out herself.
What's it mean, precious? What's it mean?
Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Get the fuck out of here, can't you see I'm busy?
Okay, maybe not exactly like that. But Jane is developing an unhealthy obsession with this wallpaper. Pretty soon, the figure of the woman grows clearer, and it starts to look like she's trying to escape out from under the designs. Jane claims that the woman shakes the bars at night and creeps around during the day. And sometimes, Jane likes to creep around too. But eventually, Jane can't take it anymore. She's gotta free this woman so they can creep together, I guess. So one day when she's all alone, she locks the door and she rips down the wallpaper, biting it and tearing it apart like a fucking Wolverine. Free at last! Now John's banging on the door, he's obviously heard the commotion going on inside, and when he manages to break the door in, he sees Jane just creeping around the borders of the room. And he's so freaked out by this that he faints.
Hey, Katie, are you alright?
Oh my god, what are you doing? What's it look like I'm doing, Katie? I'm crawling!
Oh god, this floor is disgusting.
Yeah, that can happen when you lock someone in a room all day, every day without any social interaction. So my fellow introverts, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. And Jane just casually crawls over John's body whenever she passes by, like he's just a minor inconvenience for her. Well anyway, if it wasn't already obvious, Jane has essentially freed herself from her husband, who was like the wallpaper trapping the woman, and yada yada yada. I don't read the story for the symbolism, I read it for the creepy lady crawling around on the floor at the end. The moral of this story is that wallpaper sucks.